Hi friends, please shut your eyes. So, online friends, please type yes. That you can hear me. I'm being asked, did our class take place yesterday? The answer to that is no. There was no class yesterday. ठीक है, चलिए. So in the last lecture, we had begun discussing the position of women in Indian society, and we had particularly noted how women, through various customs and religious festivities and rituals, everyday language, through the process of socialization or growing up in a patrilineal society, they imbibe this notion that men or boys are somewhat superior. Right? We had particularly noted the prevalence of male dominance in the realm of family life as well as the role of religion. Right? Moving ahead. One thing which I want to clarify before moving with the agenda of the day. I was asked regarding whatever we are studying in sociology, how do we use that for GS social issues portions? The answer to that is yes, we can very much use whatever we are discussing in GS, but with some caution. Caution in the sense, we don't make it very technical, jargon laden, or quote sociologists, the way you are expected to quote sociologists in your sociology papers, not so in the case of GS. Otherwise, in GS 1, 2, 3, a lot of things that we study, particularly in paper 2, can be used. Second, also, of course, not the whole of the syllabus will be relevant for GS paper. Portions of it, for example, women-related questions frequently asked in GS papers also. So whatever we are discussing nowadays, we can use it there also. Right? Tribal movements ke upar, political issues like regionalism, secularism, communalism, globalization ka impact, all of these are asked in GS papers also. Also issues related to poverty, inequality are asked. Okay? So you can use whatever we are learning here, but in a slightly different manner in your GS papers. Secondly, the Indian Express is conducting a series of interviews with me pertaining to social issues, which are also shared in the Telegram channel. And those are specifically, the answers that I give and the questions that they ask, both are designed keeping in mind the audience for GS social issues and social justice portions. So that you can directly pick up from there also or go through them, they will be helpful. Theek? Thirdly, some topics which may be of consequence in GS social issues portions, but are not of importance in sociology, we don't do in sociology. For example, children-related topics are not explicitly mentioned in our sociology papers, so we don't do them. But for GS, they may be relevant. So we do those for GS. ठीक है? Topics like drug addiction, corruption. We don't directly address them in sociology. Maybe, tangentially while discussing deviance theory, we may have talked. But they may be relevant for GS papers. ठीक है? तो वो हम separately we have to do. That is that. Now moving ahead with the position of women in Indian society. Give a subheading: women and caste. Women and caste. Are these two separate questions? The issue of caste and women's position in society. Are we mixing up two unrelated topics या इनका कुछ आपस में लेना देना है? How are they related? The essence of caste is endogamy, absolutely. And no less than Ambedkar had highlighted how to ensure endogamy, patriarchal practices developed to ensure numerical parity between the sexes. Patriarchal practices like sati, marrying older men to younger women, and widow, whatever, the plight of widows, or the enforced widowhood, that developed. That we have already discussed. So you can just quickly make mention Ambedkar. I'm not explaining again because we've already dealt with that. Okay? Secondly, friends, Uma Chakravarti. She's developed this concept of Brahmanical patriarchy. Have you heard this term? What is particularly Brahmanical about patriarchy? Have you heard this ever? What context? Wonderful. Very well put. Brahmanical patriarchy, what she says, friends, and you please make note, that the caste system and gender inequality worked together to produce a Brahmanical social order. To produce a Brahmanical social order, and that social order she terms as Brahmanical patriarchy in Indian society. In ancient Indian society. In ancient Indian society. ठीक? Basically, friends, for the upper castes, it was very important to control the sexuality of women. To ensure caste endogamy or purity of caste, it was important for the upper caste to control the sexuality of women. For this, 3 mechanisms were developed. How to control women's sexuality? Why do we need to control women's sexuality? To ensure caste endogamy. I repeat, it was important for the upper caste to control women's sexuality. I repeat, it was important for the upper caste to control women's sexuality to ensure endogamy, caste endogamy. ठीक है? मतलब how do you prevent women of the high caste from sexually intermingling with men of the lower caste. That was of essence or of prime importance for the high castes. How do you ensure? 3 mechanisms were developed. 3 ways. कैसे इंश्योर करोगे कि हाई कास्ट वुमेन डोंट हैव सेक्स विद लोअर कास्ट मेन? बताओ ब्राह्मणों, सोचो. बॉयकट कर दोगी सीधा? हाँ. रिस्ट्रिक्ट मोबिलिटी, ऑनर किलिंग, छोटी बात करते ही नहीं हो. हाँ. फर्स्ट मैकेनिज्म इज आइडियोलॉजिकल कंडीशनिंग. वो खुद ही अपने आप को रोक लेगी तो हमें रोकने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. आइडियोलॉजिकल कंडीशनिंग ऑफ विमेन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल थ्रू नोशंस लाइक पतिव्रता. पतिव्रता होनी चाहिए नारी. कैसी होनी चाहिए? पतिव्रता मतलब कमिटेड टू, लॉयल टू हु? द हस्बैंड. But what about before marriage? अरे भैया, you have to be pativrata even before marriage. You have to be committed to your future husband. ठीक है? And what about after the death of the husband? Can you then frolic? Then also you have to be pativrata or remain committed to the dead husband. ठीक है ना? सो जो नोशन ऑफ पतिव्रता है, दैट्स एन इंपॉर्टेंट आइडियोलॉजिकल टूल टू कंट्रोल वुमेन सेक्सुअलिटी. दूसरा, द यूज ऑफ वायलेंस. सो वेरियस हिंदू धर्मशास्त्रस allowed or even advocated the use of violence. ठीक? धर्मशास्त्रास are Hindu law books like Manusmriti. The use of violence, physical violence, was condoned, sanctioned by various Hindu law books or dharmashastras. And third, the ultimate power to punish an errant woman vested with the king. The king had ultimate authority to punish, and he was enjoined upon by the dharmashastras to punish an errant woman. Errant मतलब wayward या जो भटक जाए. Sorry? To punish an errant woman or a wayward woman, somebody who's sleeping around with men other than husband. ठीक? Adulterous woman, है ना? ठीक? So king की जिम्मेवारी थी. तो using these mechanisms, it was ensured that the upper castes were able to manage or have an effective control over the sexuality of the upper caste women. ठीक? Thereby producing a brahmanical social order. चलो आगे चलो. Women and politics. How's political life, ladies? Good? With Nari Shakti, Vandan, Adhiniyam and all? हाँ, आ ही गया. मतलब एक्ट पास हो गया. अब बस 10 एक साल के अंदर आ ही जाएगा. अंडर रिप्रेजेंटेड. In panchayats, it's the husbands who wield real power. Or on the positive side, ठीक है, as regards women's role in Indian politics goes, there is mandatory reservation for women of minimum 33% in the local bodies, panchayats and urban local bodies both, thanks to the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments, because of which lakhs of women, yes or no, have occupied leadership positions at the local level. कई स्टेट्स में तो 50% तक हो गया. आई थिंक बिहार इज वन ऑफ देम. हाँ, सो इट इज मिनिमम 33% रिजर्वेशन फॉर वुमेन. दूसरी बात फ्रेंड्स, ऑन द पॉजिटिव साइड अगेन, वी हैव हैड अ क्रॉप ऑफ national and state level women leaders. For instance, I'm saying we have had a decent number of national and state level women leaders, political leaders, be it an Indira Gandhi, yes or no, a very long serving prime minister who was regarded as the only man in her cabinet, to Jaya Lalita, to Mehbooba Mufti, to Mayawati, to Sushma Swaraj या Mamta Banerjee, है ना, Kani Moi, numerous, Nirmala Sitharaman, several leaders we have had, to the current president of India, a tribal woman. Also, friends, please appreciate women enthusiastically participate in the political system as voters. Women का जो voter turnout है वो भी appreciable है, at par with men. In some elections it surpasses the turnout of male voters. ठीक? तो ऐसा नहीं है कि भारतीय महिला जो है वो पॉलिटिकली असर्टिव नहीं है. एज वी स्पीक 2023 में द विमेन्स रिजर्वेशन बिल हैज बीन पास्ड विच प्रोवाइड्स फॉर 33% रिजर्वेशन फॉर विमेन इन विच लेजिस्लेचर? सेंट्रल लेजिस्लेचर, लोकसभा एंड असेंबलीज, स्टेट असेंबलीज. ठीक, that has been passed. Yet there are areas of concern as follows. According to ADR report, ADR है Association for Democratic Reforms, in 2019, of all MPs and MLAs, in the country, only 9% were women. Only 9%, friends. धन्यवाद भैया. Of all the MPs and MLAs in the country, only 9% were women. So एक इंदिरा गांधी होने से या एक निर्मला सीतारमन होने से या मायावती होने से does not ensure women's, it's still their representation in the political system is far below their share of the population. ठीक. The current Lok Sabha, 17th Lok Sabha जो है, that has only 14% women MPs. द करंट 17th लोकसभा यानी 2019 जनरल इलेक्शंस के बाद वाली हैज ओनली 14%, 14% women MPs, which is the highest ever. So since independence आज तक सबसे अधिक अब हैं, और अब केवल 14% हैं, अर्थात इससे पहले 14 से कम ही रही हैं महिलाओं की भागीदारी. ठीक. अकॉर्डिंग टू IPU, इंटरनेशनल इंटर पार्लियामेंट्री यूनियन, India ranks 140 out of 196 countries. In women's representation. ठीक है. Also, a person no less than the Pradhan Mantri has mentioned about Sarpanch Pati Raj, meaning you do have large number of women at the local level, but oftentimes de facto who wields power, it is their husbands. So women are merely mukhotas, okay, or real power is often enjoyed by their husbands, by the Prime Minister. Modi ji. सरपंच पति राज. सो अगर सरपंच महिला है, एक्चुअल में सरपंच का जो पति है वो डिसीजंस लेता है. Have you guys like witnessed this? Anyone in real life in your village? बताओ बिटिया. कहाँ पे? मेरठ में. Your village? Sisoli village near Meerut. Or in other parts of the country, I think this UP is too casteist and too patriarchal. Where? Andhra Pradesh also. क्या हुआ वहां? हाँ, inviting the Sarpanch for the Independence Day celebrations. She is? Oh, so she will not entertain you. She'll say, you come when my husband is there in the house. Though she is the de jure or real Sarpanch, the elected Sarpanch, she is. This was also shown in this web series, na? Panchayat, where Neena Gupta plays that role. Okay, so it's also a social reality. As far as the present bill goes, friends, okay, several concerns have been expressed. A, that the bill has come after a very long wait of more than 25 years. It was first introduced in 1996. The Women's Reservation Bill was first introduced in 1996. And it has got passed in 2023. Right? So it had to face various roadblocks. दूसरा, the implementation will take another or some time. Why? Because the implementation will be after the census and the subsequent delimitation. So it can take another 5 to 10 years. also that mere representation in parliament or legislature may not result in the upliftment of women. Mere greater representation, women's representation in legislature may not result in the upliftment of women. Also that what has happened at the local level may also be replicated at the state and national levels. In the sense, women may be reduced to symbolic this thing, while real control continues to vest with men. Lalu Yadav, when he was jailed, he installed Rabdi Devi, his wife, as the chief minister. And the greatest opposition to the bill has come on grounds of, yes, a demand for quota within quota, OBC quota within the women's quota, right? That has been a point of contention. The present bill doesn't have that provision, but several parties, political leaders have been demanding. ठीक? I'm saying OBC, several parties who have OBCs as their main vote bank, like RJD, JDU, they have been demanding a quota within the quota. That women's quota should be implemented only along with a quota for OBC women within the women's quota. We'll be talking more about it as we proceed in just a bit. Now, some scholarly viewpoints on the Women's Reservation Bill. Nandini Sundar, she says that women should not be made to wait. Women should not be made to wait for the census and the delimitation exercise. Delimitation, census and delimitation. ठीक है? सुहास पालशेकर, he says the bill is a ploy by the ruling party. The bill is a tactic by the ruling dispensation to project itself as a harbinger of Nari Shakti. As a harbinger of Nari Shakti. Harbinger मतलब जो लेके आए या इनिशिएट करे, है ना, उसको लेके आने वाले. Basically that BJP is using it for political brownie points, है ना. BJP is trying to do it for electoral gains. That is what he is suggesting. Nivedita Menon, She says the title of the bill is patronizing. The title of the bill is patronizing. Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Basically, what it is doing is it is projecting women as idols to be worshipped. Instead of as active citizens, women are being projected as idols to be worshipped. समझे? ये कह रही है ये कैसा नाम है? नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम. वंदन मतलब पूजा, नारी शक्ति की पूजा करने का कानून है ये नाम है इसका. एंड ऊपर से प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने अपनी जब ये अनाउंस किया था तो अपनी स्पीच में भी ऐसे शब्द यूज किए थे. विमेन वर टॉक्ड ऑफ इन टर्म्स ऑफ माताएं एंड बहनें एंड बहूज एंड बेटीज, रीइंफोर्सिंग द ट्रेडिशनल जेंडर रोल्स असाइन टू विमेन. ठीक है ना? तो ये कोई तरीका नहीं होता. ठीक है. जेएनयू की हैं, यू विल कीप विजिटिंग हर रेगुलरली एज वी proceed. Menon has also pointed out, she's outlined the history of the women's reservation, this demand. So this issue of women's reservation was even discussed in the Constituent Assembly. Okay? And it was rejected. This notion of women's reservation was rejected by the Constituent Assembly as well as women's organizations of that time. Why? Because it would imply that women are unable to compete with men on equal terms. It will underestimate the strength of women to compete with men as equals. I repeat, the Constituent Assembly as well as women's organizations had rejected the idea of women's reservation as it would undermine the strength of women to compete with men as equals. ठीक? But by 1990s, a broad consensus had emerged. By 1990s, mid 1990s, a broad consensus had emerged in favor of women's reservation. This is all Menon. Huh? By mid 1990s, a broad consensus had emerged on women's reservation, in favor of women's reservation, amongst political parties as well as women's organizations. Basically, तब तक realize हो गया that very few women are there in the legislatures. हाँ, so जरूरत तो है. Since then till today, 25 साल से ऊपर क्यों लग गए? Two types of opposition the bill has had to face. One is patriarchal opposition. मतलब कि एक पेट्रियार्कल माइंडसेट जो है वो वाइडली प्रेवलेंट है अक्रॉस पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज. सो मेन फियर सीडिंग स्पेस टू वुमेन. ठीक. Mulayam Singh Yadav ji, a tall national leader, he had once commented long back on the issue of women's reservation bill. He said if the bill is passed, it will force young men to whistle in parliament. क्या करेगा बेचारा जवान लड़का? वो सीटी बजाने पे, मारने पे, बजाते नहीं है, बच्चे बजाते हैं, बड़े मारते हैं सीटी. सीटी मारने पे मजबूर हो जाएगा. ठीक. शरद यादव, he had commented that ये जो बाल कटी लड़कियां होती हैं, they cannot represent the interests of rural women. I see many बाल कटी लड़कियां here also. बाल कटी means in the sense city bred, एजुकेटेड, इंग्लिश स्पीकिंग, कॉलेज गोइंग टाइप की जो पढ़ी लिखी फेमिनिस्ट होती हैं. आर यू विद मी? दे डू नॉट शेयर द सेम सोशल बैकग्राउंड एज रूरल वुमेन. सो हाउ कैन दे स्पीक फॉर देम? ये भरेंगी पार्लियामेंटों में बाल कटी लड़कियां. ओके. सो दीज आर काइंड ऑफ पेट्रियार्कल kind of opposition that has been expressed to the bill. But a legitimate opposition has also been expressed, which does not just stem from patriarchy, which is that if women's reservation bill is introduced the way it has been, non-dominant caste men will be replaced by women of the dominant castes. In the political system, men of the non-dominant castes will be replaced by women of the dominant castes. Basically, the high caste women will replace the lower caste men in the legislatures. ठीक है. क्या नाम है तुम्हारा? मेनन. मेनन argues that the current bill will only benefit elite women. The current bill will benefit mainly the elite women who already have the cultural and political capital. I repeat, the current bill will only benefit elite women who already have the cultural and political capital to win elections. ठीक है. कांचा शेपर्ड अपोज करेंगे, सपोर्ट करेंगे? बताओ ना. वेरी गुड, अपोज करते हैं. ही सेज विमेन्स रिजर्वेशन विदाउट कोटा विद इन कोटा, विदाउट द प्रोविजन फॉर कोटा विद इन कोटा, OBC men will be displaced by upper caste women. OBC men may get displaced by upper caste women because their constituencies will be particularly targeted for reservation. ठीक. दीपांकर गुप्ता सपोर्ट करेंगे, अपोज करेंगे? सपोर्ट करते हैं. आप लोग लिटरली इंसान की जात के ऊपर जा रहे हो. आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट. सो ही सेज दैट द this bill which has been passed, it's a historic bill, no doubt. But reservation alone cannot ensure women's safety in our society. He gives examples of other countries. Okay? I repeat, reservation alone cannot ensure women's safety. For example, South Africa. 40% parliamentarians are women. In South Africa, 40% of parliamentarians are women. In Rwanda, 61% parliamentarians are women. I was surprised to read his article. He says more than 70 or 75% of the population is women in Rwanda, which is because men have been killed. So remarkable. So, but in both these countries, you find a high rate of crime against women. There are a lot of crimes against women. These are not safe places for women, despite having many parliamentarians. In contrast, countries like Australia, Sweden, Netherlands, they have, these are safe. And the crimes against women are much less. क्या फर्क है? यहां पे they have women's adequate representation in these countries which are safe for women. There is adequate women's representation in parliament as well as in the police force. In the police force. इसलिए यहां पे विमेन सेफ्टी अच्छी है, क्राइम अगेंस्ट विमेन कम है. यू हैव एडिक्वेट विमेन्स रिप्रेजेंटेशन इन पॉलिटिक्स एज वेल एज पुलिस. इंडिया में ओनली 10.5% of the police force is women. Presently, only 10.5%, 10.5% of the police force in India is women. So if he says if we want to ensure women's safety, it is the best time to also introduce reservation for women in the police. We should, this is the opportune time, माहौल बन गया है, एक हवा चल गई है, ठीक है, to bring about. He says we should introduce a bill to have 33% reservation for women in the police force also. That will go a long way, both things together. Women's representation in legislature as well as police force, in drastically reducing crimes against women. ठीक? चलो आगे चलो. Women and the economy. This I have discussed at some greater length because current development. Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Now coming to women and the economy. So what is the situation? How is the financial situation? सब चंगा, बढ़िया, माल पानी की हालत, विमेन लोग, what say? How are you doing in the economy? Well or not? No? Why? क्या है दिक्कत? Very good. लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन रेट लो है. नाउ फ्रेंड्स, इन द इकोनॉमी there are several issues regarding women's participation as follows. Firstly, there's a huge gender gap in the labor force participation rates. ठीक है. And counterintuitively, friends, the female labor force participation rate is declining. One would expect कि जैसे हम ज्यादा मॉडर्न हो रहे हैं, इकोनॉमी खुल गई है पिछले 20-30 सालों में, yes or no, we are becoming or relatively more developed society. One would expect more women participating in the economy, but you have decline in the female labor force participation rate. Why? What explains that? Why are women? Yes.
Because the push of women from education to the working economy has been not taking place.
Why?
Because of the patriarchal constraint plus some economic constraints. Like for example, the skilling is very low in women.
Why is it on a downward trend? Which is very counterintuitive. One second. What you are saying, that has always been there. Patriarchal constraints.
Population का percentage होता है, 26 point something is labor force participation rate of women. तो population बढ़ रही है, denominator बढ़ रहा है, but उससे women participation नहीं बढ़ रहा है. तो वो तो अपने आप ही नीचे आ जाएगा. That is the status quo is there. LFPR अपने आप नीचे आ जाएगा.
नहीं. Yes.
Because people are getting more well off, so they are comparing their women to AI.
Yes. That is an important reason. Please appreciate, as a society we are becoming better off. As family incomes are rising, women are withdrawn from the labor force. With rise in or increase in family incomes, women are withdrawn from the labor force. Why? Because it is considered as an affront to the male breadwinner's earning capacity or his masculinity. Are you with me? Or the honor of the family. If women work outside the home. तो एक माइंडसेट होता है कि अच्छे घर की लड़कियां बाहर काम नहीं करती. I remember, now I come from a decently pretty educated family. Like we've had a rich tradition of education, including the girl child's education. When my sister got educated and she got a very good job, we were all very happy. Parents, she herself of course, she had a good education and she got a very well paying job. My mama ji told my dad, तुम्हें बेटी की कमाई की खानी है. समझ रहे हो आप? So that is the mindset that we have to deal with. And that particularly happens with increase in affluence. If women work outside the home, it is considered as somewhat dishonorable for the men or the family. So with improvement in the economic status of the family, women tend to be withdrawn. Another very counterintuitive reason for reduction in women's declining trend of women's labor force participation is increase in women's education. Increase in women's education. Basically one would expect कि जितना पढ़ेगी उतना और कमा के लाएगी लड़की, उतनी कमाने के लिए सक्षम हो जाएगी, capable हो जाएगी. Yes or no? Education, one would expect that would make a woman more capable of earning a better income, and therefore, but as women spend more time in the education system, Are you with me? The duration or time available to her before marriage for employment gets reduced. पहले क्या होता था, लड़की हुई 15-16 साल की, काम पे लग गई, पर अब लड़की लंबे समय तक स्कूल में रह रही है, कॉलेज जा रही है, और कॉलेज के होते ही फिर शादी का टाइम आ गया. समझ रहे? सो वेरी काउंटर इंट्यूटिवली अगेन, ड्यू टू improvement in women's education, it is adversely affecting their labor force participation rate. Now, women are hugely involved in the care economy. I'm moving beyond this labor force participation rate thing. Women are engaged in the care economy. Care economy matlab caring for children, the elderly, the sick members of the family. But that is unpaid work. That is unpaid work. And it is estimated that women's unpaid work is valued at about 3.1% of India's GDP. Women's unpaid work is valued at about 3.1% of the country's GDP, which is substantial. Also, being engaged in or this unpaid work results in time poverty. Time poverty. साफ बात है, अगर आप बच्चे पाल रही हो 4 घंटे, यू विल हैव लेसर टाइम ऑन योर हैंड्स अवेलेबल फॉर गेनफुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट आउटसाइड दी होम. यस और नो? Results in time poverty. ठीक? According to ILO, International Labour Organization, there is a gender gap in wages. Gender gap in wages of about 30% in India. 30%. 30. Whether women for the same tasks or similar tasks get paid about 30% lesser than men. There are several other issues also at the workplace, such as sexual harassment at the workplace. In India also we witnessed the Me Too movement, for example. Yes or no? There is the issue of glass ceiling at the workplace. ठीक? अच्छा, another trend that we see is feminization of agriculture. Feminization of agriculture. Meaning women are increasingly participating in the agriculture sector. But isn't that good? Isn't that what we want as feminists? साफ बात, यही तो चाहिए ना. हर चीज प्रॉब्लम क्यों है? Isn't that really a positive development? If women are contributing to the agricultural economy. बिटिया, निकालो नुक्स. बिल्कुल करेक्ट. So feminization of agriculture is taking place. Reason क्या है? Basically, as agriculture is becoming increasingly unremunerative, or it is not generating enough income, men are leaving for jobs in the city. They are going to the cities. From rural areas, villages, men are going to cities for better paying jobs. So agriculture की responsibility is coming on women's shoulders. ठीक है? That is what is happening. That is why feminization of agriculture is taking place. आदमी लोग गांव छोड़ छोड़ के शहरों में जा रहे हैं ताकि बेहतर पैसा कमा सके, बेटर पेइंग नौकरी मिल जाए. But this results in a dual burden, as she rightly pointed out. So women continue to perform their traditional roles For example, taking care of children, elderly, yes or no? Household chores. Plus, she now also has to engage in agricultural labor. पहले वो सिर्फ घर का काम कर रही थी, अब वो घर का भी काम कर रही है. पति तो चला गया गांव, अब वो उसके बच्चे पाल रही है, वो उसके माँ बाप की सेवा कर रही है, घर संभाल के रख रही है, प्लस खेत में भी काम कर रही है. ठीक. Secondly, please appreciate women's ownership and control over agricultural land is meager. Women don't own or control the production process in agriculture. तीसरी बात, अर्निंग जो होती है एग्रीकल्चर से मीगर होती है. सो हर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन टू द फैमिली इनकम रिमेन्स लेस कंपेयर टू द मैन्स इन कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन. तभी गया है पति. ऑफन टाइम्स एग्रीकल्चर में जो मशीनरी यूज होती है दैट इज नॉट विमेन फ्रेंडली. ट्रैक्टर्स, थ्रेशर्स वगैरह जो होते हैं, ठीक. तो दीज आर सम ऑफ द इश्यूज विद फेमिनाइजेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, इन द वर्क प्लेस women face other issues. For example, women's issues are neglected by male dominated trade unions. Trade unions are mostly dominated by men, so they don't raise up women's issues. I repeat, women workers issues are ignored by male dominated trade unions. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, कई बार कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट्स पे विमेन वर्कर्स के टॉयलेट्स नहीं होते, विमेन लेबरर्स के. क्रेच फैसिलिटीज नहीं होती हैं एट दी वर्क प्लेस. फीडिंग रूम या नहीं होता कुछ, है ना. तो उनको बच्चा भी पाल के लाद के लाना है साथ में, और उसको पालने के लिए कोई सुविधा भी नहीं है. एंड दीज इश्यूज आर नॉट टेकन अप बाय दी ट्रेड यूनियंस ऑल्सो. ठीक है, आगे बढ़ो. Women and education. How is it going in the education system, women? पढ़ाई लिखाई के मामले में तो आप काफी होशियार हो. हमने देखा है ईयर आफ्टर ईयर सीबीएसई टॉपर्स कौन होते हैं? लड़कियां होती हैं. बोलो, educated women, how is the education system treating you? Good or not? Better than other fields. Brother? Lack of female teachers in schools is an issue. Good. He's saying you have like girls colleges and girls schools also. Brother? Girls are also they're burdened with household chores, while boys are free to loiter and study. Bitya? If the family income is limited, then the family prefers first to spend on the male child education. So it happened with a friend of hers. That, okay? हाँ. बिटिया? You're also friend with the same girl. That's remarkable. Yes. So there's this time factor regarding, girls are subjected to earlier marriage than boys. Bitya, preference will be given to girls. हाँ.
Some families have a mindset कि जितना पढ़ना है पढ़ लो, but उसके बाद you cannot work. So there is
Very good. जितना पढ़ना है पढ़ लो, then you cannot work. हाँ.
lack of motivation for girls because it's not productive at all.
हाँ, then that is demotivating. तो पढ़ूं क्यों मैं? है ना, अगर रोटी बेलनी है, then why should I really study? क्यों नहीं काम करने सकते? वही नाक वाक कट जाएगी and all that. हाँ, बिल्कुल. It's not honorable, है ना? बिटिया?
Sir, there was one girl in my class. She said that their father told her to get graduated because boys' family demanding that I need girl who is graduated.
हाँ, कई बार तो लड़कियों को पढ़ाते ही इसीलिए हैं कि शादी अच्छी हो जाएगी या दहेज कम लगेगा. बिल्कुल, ब्रदर. One second, sorry. But yes, why do boys want educated wives? बच्चे अच्छे पालती है, बच्चे की पढ़ाई देख लेगी. हाँ. वॉशरूम्स वगैरह की कमी है. एब्सोल्युटली. वर्कफोर्स इशू है, नॉट से एजुकेशन सिस्टम का. व्हाट यू सेइंग. ठीक है. सो यस फ्रेंड्स, ऑन दी पॉजिटिव साइड, पॉजिटिव तो सोचना ही बंद कर दिया आपने. हाँ, ऑन दी पॉजिटिव साइड देयर हैज बीन अ सिग्निफिकेंट इंक्रीज इन द फीमेल लिटरेसी रेट. Female literacy rate has gone up substantially since independence. Primary school level में enrollment girl child का is at par with boys enrollment, which is 100%, more than 100%. I don't know how they do that jugglery, but it is actually more than 100%. कुछ 102 104% चलता रहता है. शायद एक बच्चे का नाम दो जगह लिख देते होंगे या कुछ, बट है. ठीक है. बट पॉइंट इज फ्रेंड्स, एट द प्राइमरी लेवल एवरी गर्ल चाइल्ड रिमार्केबली इज इन स्कूल, enrolled in school, which is no mean feat. So women's education in many ways had made great strides. But there's always a but. Concerns remain. There continues to be a substantial gender gap in literacy rates. 17% का gender gap है in literacy rates even today. 17. Women's education or women's literacy rate is 65%. And male literacy rate is 82%. (2011) census. So there's a substantial gender gap in literacy rates even today. There is full enrollment, but attendance and retention remain a challenge. अटेंड क्यों नहीं करती हो आप लोग? इतना बंक क्यों मारते हो? हाँ, यस, सॉरी, सिबलिंग्स का ख्याल रखने के लिए. वन ऑफ द रीजन. सो why is attendance a challenge? Because the girl child is also burdened or expected to contribute towards household chores like taking care of younger siblings, etc. Also, very importantly, if the school is at a distance, If the school is at a distance from the residence, then the safety of the girl child is a concern. तो क्या करेगी स्कूल जाके? घर पे ही पढ़ ले, किताबें भी हैं, स्लेट भी है. ठीक? Another legit concern that was raised is the lack of female teachers in school. The lack of female teachers in schools. But why do you want female teachers, friends? Can't you study from male teachers? Isn't it as good? She is saying this is patriarchal mindset, but she is saying male teachers are better than female teachers. Okay, let's not get into that. But why should we have, or should we really be concerned about, not enough female teachers in educational spaces? Or is that not a good thing to be concerned about? Is that like, are we taking the discussion in a wrong direction? Bitya? Absolutely correct. साफ बात है, the presence of female teachers gives a sense of safety and security to the girl child and also very importantly to her parents. Yes or no? Please also appreciate during the schooling years, there are bodily changes also as one grows up. Hormonal changes and bodily changes. A female student can approach a female teacher with any such issues. Yes or no, of adolescence, than a male teacher. Also, girl students have been subjected to sexual harassment in educational spaces by male teachers, administrative staff. ये सब असली में होता है क्या? That male teachers, too noble a profession, that male teachers would sexually harass female students. Any of you have any personal first-hand knowledge of any such? Bitya? It happened with your best friend in school? She was in which standard, if I may ask? 10th standard, and the school was what? Decent standard kind of a school? It has, the school is second ranked in that city. Yes? A male teacher was verbally abusing female students in the high school. Was action taken eventually? It was taken. In my school also, friends, I remember when I was in school, my seniors, when I was younger, maybe in 7th and 8th, some of my seniors, and I come from it is a very good school, in Delhi, one of the better schools in Delhi. And there was a very serious allegation against a teacher. So one girl spoke up from amongst my senior batch, and then there were several others. So he used to, apparently on the pretext of checking whether they are wearing gold jewelry or something. Girls were not allowed to wear gold jewelry, so he would touch them inappropriately in the school premises. And that teacher, he was a scare. Terror नहीं होते जो देखने से ही डर लगता है और बहुत strict looking and everything. And then there was a lot of narebazi and all, and then action was taken against him. In one of my earlier batches, a female student, she told me of an incident that she had personally faced, and she was in an all-girls college. One of the better ones of Delhi University, where one of the teachers was a male, and he was abusive sexually, and no action was taken despite her complaining. So, you know, there's a lack of girls' toilets, as somebody rightly mentioned, one of the students. You know, schools में girls' toilets नहीं होते. Imagine that. For something as basic a need as urination. तो क्या करेगी लड़की? She'll stop coming to school eventually. The school curriculum promotes gender stereotypes. Yeah, so various, through the way stories are woven in school textbooks, anything, poems are written, problems are framed, they often promote gender stereotypes. For example, one of my daughter's school poems goes, and they, in geometry class, I was wondering how they can promote gender stereotypes in a subject as abstract as geometry. So they were teaching kids shapes. So they taught them how कि मम्मी की रोटी गोल गोल, पापा का पैसा गोल गोल. My mother's roti is round. They had to teach the circular shape. My father's money is round. Okay. दादाजी का चश्मा गोल गोल. What does this teach the child at a very young age? That mummy is associated with making rotis or household chores. Papa is the main breadwinner of the family, or he is the one who earns money. So पैसा किसका है? पापा का. रोटी किसकी है? मम्मी की. दादाजी का चश्मा गोल गोल. So Dadaji is the guy who stereotypically reads the newspaper wearing a chashma. Even though Dadi may also wear chashma. But Dadi की चूड़ी गोल गोल. ठीक है ना? Yeah, you may have come across that poem, very famous, कि खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. Now this poem celebrates her bravery and valor, but क्योंकि वो लड़ी, क्या थी वो? मर्दानी थी. In other words, we are associating that aggression, dominance, etc. These are masculine traits. Yes or no? So that is how gender stereotypes are perpetuated and reinforced by school curriculums. ठीक, आगे चलो. In your answers, you don't write पापा का पैसा या मम्मी की रोटी. These are just to be able to connect. Women and development. Development. How does the process of socio-economic development affect women? साफ बात है. In general, from a woman's perspective, development is desirable or not? Clearly it is. With socio-economic development and progress, the position of women improves in society. As the society becomes more developed, the position of women improves. Right? As an indicator, you simply see that the position of women is better in which societies? Developed societies or underdeveloped societies? Developed societies typically have a better status of women than underdeveloped or developing societies. ठीक? So development is clearly beneficial. For women. For example, gender gap जो होता है, wage gap या labor force participation rate में, है ना? कहां पे, where will you find it lesser? In the more developed societies. Factually ऐसा ही है. चाहे वेज गैप हो, लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन रेट में जेंडर गैप हो. ठीक है. सो डेवलपमेंट बढ़िया है, बट please appreciate that the process of development itself is gendered. The process of development is gendered, meaning what? That men and women are affected differently by development. In other words, women are not equal beneficiaries of the fruits of development. Women are not equal participants in the process of development. Are you with me? There's a 2015 report by the High Level Committee on the Status of Women in India. This was a committee established by the Government of India. And in your answer sheets, you cannot use this as an acronym. Okay? High Level Committee on the Status of Women in India, which points out that women have lagged behind men on various developmental parameters. Women lag behind men on various developmental parameters. Whether it is, say, education related, literacy rate ले लो, gross enrollment ratio ले लो in higher education, डेमोग्राफिक पैरामीटर्स ले लो, सेक्स रेशो, चाइल्ड सेक्स रेशो, इकोनॉमिक पैरामीटर्स ले लो, है ना, वही वेज गैप और ये सारी चीजें, लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन रेट में डिफरेंसेस, हेल्थ पैरामीटर्स ले लो, एसेट ओनरशिप, मोबाइल ओनरशिप, ठीक. अमर्त्य सेन, ही इज अ डेवलपमेंटल इकोनॉमिस्ट. He is given this concept of missing women. Which we have discussed already. Rita Banerjee's the 50 million missing campaign. Yeah. Who are these missing women? Eliminated by feticide, infanticide, dowry deaths, इस type की चीजें, है ना? According to the Economic Survey 2017-18, there are 6.3 crore missing women in India. रीटा बनर्जी ने 5 करोड़ बताई थी. इकोनॉमिक सर्विसेज 6.3 करोड़ मिसिंग वुमेन इन इंडिया. 6.3 crore. And there are 2.1 crore unwanted girls. ये वो हैं जो बच गई, चाहिए नहीं थी हमें पर बच गई. ठीक. Let's take a break. We are not done, of course. Huh? Let's continue. What have we discussed last is development. Is that? है ना? Developmental process and women. आगे बढ़िए. The constitutional and legal framework and women. Sorry? Can I please? The AC. भैया ये AC बंद कर दीजिए प्लीज. करते हैं थोड़ा है ना. The constitutional and legal framework and the position of women. So friends, I contend that what do you call, महिलाओं, परिवार आपका सगा ना हुआ, caste and religion was oppressive, lot of failings in the education system also, the political system, lot remains to be done. सारे बंद हो गए क्या? एक बंद किया ना, तो बेशक इधर का एक चला दो कॉम्पनसेशन करने के लिए, है ना. एक बस एक ही बंद किया, ठीक है, धन्यवाद. But the constitutional and legal framework of the country definitely is your savior. In the sense, our constitution is premised on the notion of gender equality. Gender equality कूट कूट के भरी है भारतीय संविधान में. If there is any bias in our constitutional and legal framework, it is in favor of women. हमारे जो laws हैं pro women है, anti women है. Clearly there is a pro women tilt in our laws and constitution. Yes or no? तो इससे तो कोई शिकायत नहीं होगी आपको, या है? हाँ, उसके इंप्लीमेंटेशन से है. वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड. डाउरी, मोस्ट, वाई जस्ट डाउरी? डाउरी इज एन apt example. So many others. Brother, marital rape still not criminalized. बिल्कुल. So point is, yes, we do have, the constitution is premised on the notion of gender equality under articles 14 and 15 and 16. Yes or no? So चाहे वो फंडामेंटल राइट्स हो, चाहे डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसी हो. Yes or no? There also there is a concern expressed for the dignity of women. चाहे वो इंडिया में, unlike in even the, or you know, better than even the western countries, suffrage was granted to women and men, all men and women, at the same time with the enactment of the constitution. आपको वोटिंग राइट दिया, द राइट टू होल्ड पब्लिक ऑफिस दिया. शी इज लाइक, आप होते कौन हो देने वाले? दैट्स हर एक्सप्रेशन, एंड लेजिटिमेटली सो. यू नो, दैट इज अ पेट्रियार्कल माइंडसेट की दिया, है ना. There are numerous laws to secure the interests of women, going back to the sati prohibition, or laws enabling widow remarriage, laws governing the age of marriage. So many pro-women laws are there. Dowry prohibition, indecent representation of women, बड़ी specific laws हैं. Various crimes against women have been made punishable offenses. चाहे वो रेप है, सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट है ना, स्टॉकिंग है, मोर रीसेंट प्रोग्रेसिव कोर्ट जजमेंट्स, चाहे वो सबरीमला का है, चाहे वो ट्रिपल तलाक का है, चाहे वो स्ट्राइकिंग डाउन अडल्ट्री वाला है, 73rd एंड 74th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट्स हैं, विच वर व्हाट, हाँ, लोकल बॉडीज में मिनिमम 33% women, टू द मोर रिसेंट नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम, ठीक, टू प्रिवेंशन ऑफ सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट, पॉश एक्ट जो है, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस के अगेंस्ट है, डाउरी प्रोहिबिशन है, और न जाने क्या क्या, नेशनल कमीशन फॉर विमेन जैसी बॉडीज बनाई गई हैं. Yet problems remain, as they always do. Flavia Agnes, she says the problem is with the, as was rightly pointed out, with the implementation. Poor implementation of pro-women's legislation. Now, implementation is in the hands of Lakshmikant, the executive. Yes or no? Now, if you as a woman face any problem, say you are harassed on the streets, क्लास से वापस जाते हुए आपको कोई छेड़ देते हैं, and you want to lodge a complaint, what will you do? How will you operationalize that law? The first point of contact will be the police. One problem is there is not adequate number of female police officers. 10.5% only of all police officers are women. So आप 10 बार सोचोगे before going to a police station. Secondly, if you tell them कि मेरे को छेड़ा, what will they do? हाँ, इस समय कहां से आ रही थी? Yes or no? There will be questions raised on your dress. ऐसे लिपस्टिक लगा के गई थी, and so on and so forth. Yes or no? In other words, friends, the investigative agencies have a patriarchal mindset. Not just कि women's representation कम है, but ऊपर से patriarchal mindset है. फिर चलो, हो गई पुलिस कंप्लेंट, फिर कहां जाएगा? कोर्ट्स में. नाउ आर्बिट्रेशन और एनी एजुडिकेशन विल बी डन बाय द जुडिशरी. इन जुडिशरी ऑल्सो विमेन्स पार्टिसिपेशन इज अबिस्मल. इट इज लेस देन 15% in Supreme Court as well as the high courts. And there are fewer or about 15% lawyers who are women. Even lawyers भी कम होती हैं. And there also we find the problem of a patriarchal bias. In the judiciary also, judicial pronouncements में, court judgments में, there is a patriarchal bias. For example, family courts में, women are often advised by the officers to compromise, not go ahead with the complaint, कि अपना घर बचाओ, simply. है ना, कि घर का मामला है, सुलटा लो, मैनेज कर लो, एडजस्ट कर लो, आगे से नहीं करेगा. There have been court judgments where the to the effect that the rape victim should be married to the accused. ठीक. रत्ना कपूर and Kalpana Kannabiran. They suggest, friends, that laws alone are not sufficient to ensure gender justice. केवल कानून बदलने से जेंडर जस्टिस नहीं मिलेगा. Yes? Why? What do we need? We need a change in people's mindsets. If that does not accompany legislative changes, laws will remain unimplemented. अगर समाज में लोगों की सोच नहीं बदली, for example, the classic example would be the ineffectiveness of the Dowry Prohibition Act. It has been made illegal since several decades past, yet it continues unabated. क्योंकि society में there is a lot of sanction, legitimacy associated with the practice. सब लेते, IAS officers and IPS officers, judges, ministers, teachers और ordinary public. तो कैसे बदलेगी? Yes or no? They also point out that several areas of women's concerns remain unaddressed by law. Several women's concerns remain unaddressed by law. Such as the issue of marital rape, still not criminalized. Rights of domestic workers. Until recently, the reforms of the personal laws of Muslims. Reform of Muslim personal laws. See, after independence, Hindu personal laws were sufficiently reformed through progressive legislation. But Muslim personal laws were almost untouched. ठीक है? For the sake of secularism कह लो या not interfering in the rights of the community. But they continue to therefore remain patriarchal till the advent of Muslim Mahila Hriday Samrat Modi ji. Okay? So only recently we have taken up issues like triple talaq, या polygamy, या hijab की controversy हुई, हाँ, या अब यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड की बात हो रही है. So Muslim women's issues have remained unaddressed. चलिए. So that is that. Next. Women and media. women and media. मीडिया स्पेस पे तो मैं कहूंगा विमेन लोग आप छाए हुए हो. यू रियली ऑल ओवर. कोई टीवी चैनल खोल लो, या तो सास बहू सीरियल्स या एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स फीचरिंग विमेन. न्यूज चैनल्स में भी यू हैव दीज वंडरफुल बैटरी ऑफ फीमेल anchors and journalists, very assertive, very articulate. Yes or no? Female Arnab Goswamis. Huh? Movies mein, everywhere. Yes or no? Maitreyi Chaudhary, okay, she's a voice. Maitreyi Chaudhary, write it as you hear it. She's written a book, Refashioning India. Refashioning India. She says that women in Indian media have gone from invisibility to hypervisibility. 1990s के बाद refashioning India. In Indian media, women have gone from a state of invisibility to hypervisibility. In Indian media, women have gone from a state of invisibility to hypervisibility. In other words, friends, what does it mean? Ki earlier, okay, before 1990s, women were not there in media coverage. Women's issues were not taken up. But now, since 1990s, and why 1990s mein kya hua hai? There has been an explosion in the media space. So you have now too many channels. 24/7 television. Yes or no? So thanks to that, there is 24/7 focus on women. तो आप अखबार उठा के देख लो, lot of news regarding crimes against women. टीवी पे चले जाओ, स्पेशली सिंस द निर्भया इंसिडेंट, देयर हैज बीन कंटिन्यूअस फोकस, देश में कहीं हो जाए, ऑन sexual harassment, rape, etc. If a politician makes any stray misogynist remark, that is also really highlighted by the media. है ना? कभी दिग्विजय सिंह ने कह दिया किसी के लिए, अपनी कांग्रेस लीडर के लिए, he said something कि 100 टन माल है. He used that language and that was really highlighted by the media. So point is that women now seem to be all over. Everywhere in media coverage, they are receiving a lot of media attention. But hypervisibility does not necessarily translate into a gender just society. हाँ, इन्होंने ही कहा है, मैं क्यों कहूंगा? Hypervisibility does not necessarily translate into a gender just society. सिंपली अगर विमेन या विमेन्स इश्यूज दिख रहे हैं, डजंट मीन कि वो इट इज टेकिंग अस टुवर्ड्स अ जेंडर जस्ट सोसाइटी. क्यों? विमेन मीडिया में आप क्या देखते हो? ऑब्जेक्टिफिकेशन ऑफ विमेन भी देखते हो. यस और नो? अ 2014 स्टडी बाय UN Women, a 2014 study by UN Women and Gina Davis Institute on gender in media. ये छोटा सा नाम है इसका, Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media. It says that Indian films, this study, 2014 study, Indian films rank high on sexualization of women. %35% full stop डाल के 35% of female characters in movies are shown with some nudity. ठीक, full stop. Women had less than 1/4 of all speaking roles. डायलॉग्स ही नहीं देते लड़कियों को, या फीमेल कैरेक्टर्स को डायलॉग्स ही नहीं देते. दे आर देयर बेसिकली एज आई कैंडी. ठीक है, यू डोंट राइट दैट टर्म इन योर आंसर्स, but that's the purpose that they serve effectively. They're basically there to titillate the male viewer, but they don't have any substantive roles. Roles क्या है? Roles, substantive roles दूर की बात, dialogues नहीं होते पिक्चरों में. एक और स्टडी की जीना डेविस इंस्टीट्यूट ने in 2021. Which says that advertisements, Indian advertisements, promote gender stereotypes. ठीक? So if you are an advertising agency or a company, MNC corporation, and you want to sell washing machines, who will you show? Women. Microwave ovens, masale. Yes or no? So primarily, so women are stereotyped as homemakers. समझ रहे हो आप? या उनका सेक्सुअलाइजेशन एंड ऑब्जेक्टिफिकेशन होगा. ठीक. So that is about the status of women in Indian media. एक सेंटेंस लिखो. सेंटेंस क्या, छोटा सा पैरा. In popular cinema, women are either portrayed as Sita dash, a devoted wife, dutifully following in her husband's footsteps, helping him achieve his life goals. Yes or no? वनवास किसको मिला था? पिताजी के वचन को किसको पालन करना था? श्री राम को. पर सीता मैया साथ में, जहां जहां आप वहां वहां मैं पीछे पीछे. That is how the Sati Savitri kind of characters in movies are portrayed. Loyal, chaste, and pure. यस और नो? कि मेरे को मेरे पति के अलावा और किसी ने नहीं छुआ, या बॉयफ्रेंड के अलावा. वीक एंड वल्नरेबल. waiting to be rescued by her hero. Yes or no? तो हीरोइंस क्या बोलती हैं? बचाओ. और फिर हीरो आता है, वो बचाएगा. और एज सूर्पनखा, और एज, या तो सीता जैसा पोर्ट्रे किया जाता है, या सूर्पनखा डैश ईवल एंड मैनिपुलेटिव. ये जो वैम्प वाले रोल्स होते हैं, evil and manipulative, sexually predatory, trying to woo the husband of another woman, trying to seduce the husband of another woman. ठीक है? जो नेगेटिव फीमेल कैरेक्टर्स होते हैं, जो वैम्प्स होते हैं, उनको ऐसा दिखाया जाता है. दे विल वेयर डीप कट ब्लाउजेस, दे विल वेयर अ काली नागिन वाली बिंदी. यस और नो? एंड देयर विल बी सम सॉर्ट ऑफ एन एंट्री साउंड व्हेन दे कम, व्हिच इज वेरी इविल काइंड ऑफ अ साउंड. Full stop. Increasingly, they are also portrayed as an apsara. Apsara. Dash. ये होती हैं जो आइटम गर्ल्स वाला किरदार होता है. नॉट एग्जैक्टली वैम्पिश, बट अट्रैक्टिव and oozing sexual energy. Attractive and oozing sexual energy. OOZING. I suspect should be this. That's what it sounds like. Oozing sexual energy, comma, using her charms on the male lead character. Yes or no? So jo Akshay Kumar hai, he just wants to be a good cop or a good brother or beta or something, and this, you have this, item girl who's trying to seduce him all around. Are you with me? That is the Apsara character. ठीक है? That is about the portrayal of women in Indian media. So point is, friends, we have discussed the position of women in Indian society, ranging from the home, caste and religion, to modern arrangements like electoral politics, या the modern education system, or media. And everywhere, what do we see? If you have to summarize the position of women in Indian society in one word, that would be patriarchy. बिल्कुल. तो ये पुरुष प्रधान समाज, पितृसत्ता, this male dominated patriarchal society, do you want to retain or you want to do away with it? रखनी है या हटानी है? चलो हटाएं. Over the next hour and a half. This is my male dominance. नहीं, चलिए. That was just to put you at ease so that you are mentally prepared for what is to come. Now let us discuss the women's movements in India. When did the women's movements in India begin? Yes? Where? नहीं, during the colonial period. Radha Kumar, in her book titled The History of Doing, has analyzed the feminist movement in India in the following phases. First phase जो है, that began in the 18th century until about 1915. नहीं 18th नहीं, Ramon Roy was 19th, right? हाँ, तो 19th. In the 19th century until about 1915. That was the first phase. Now, one of the remarkable things about the feminist movement in India, friends, has been that it was begun by men. The women's movements in India were begun by men. Educated men like Roy, ईश्वर चंद्र विद्यासागर, हाँ रॉय हो गया, केशव चंद्र, केसी सेन, है ना, विवेकानंद, सरस्वती, राइट, टैगोर, बिल्कुल, फूले, ज्योतिराव फूले, हाँ. सो इट वॉज बिगन बाय एजुकेटेड मेन ऑफ such as these. Soon after, they were joined by their female kith and kin. In other words, it was initiated by men, and soon after, women from these progressive families, also joined the feminist struggle. For example, Swarna Kumari Devi. She belonged to the Tagore family. I don't know the exact, I'm not too sure about the exact relation, but she was a Tagore. So, Swarna Kumari Devi established Sakhi Samiti to help widows. Then there was Sarla Devi. She was the daughter of Swarna Kumari Devi. And she used to accompany Gandhiji also on his tours nationally. And he used to refer to her as his spiritual wife. So, Sarla Devi. But that is not material. Okay, that's only as an aside. Sarla Devi started Bharat Stree Mahamandal. To promote women's education. Sarla Devi established Bharat Stree Mahamandal to promote women's education. Savitri Bai Phule. And Fatima Sheikh. Savitri Bai Phule and Fatima Sheikh. They were also pioneers in women's education. ठीक? ताराबाई शिंदे. Tarabai Shinde wrote Stri Purush Tulna. Stri Purush Tulna. Tulna means comparison. Stri Purush means women and men. Stri Purush Tulna, which criticized Hindu scriptures as a source of women's oppression. ठीक? So these were some of the early women feminists. Also, during this phase, the major issues that were taken up were prohibition of sati. You know it actually, just putting it all together. The plight of widows, prohibition of sati, plight of widows, widow remarriage, child marriage, parda system, and women's education. That women have to remain behind a veil, okay, or they have to not be seen in public places, okay, or not be seen by men other than husbands or the closest of family members. ठीक? That was the parda system, so that was questioned. Acha, another, what should I say? Another noticeable aspect of this phase of the movement was that women's issues were taken up as part of a broader program of socio-religious reforms. There was no autonomous women's movement during this time, but women's issues were taken up as part of a broader movement of socio-religious reforms. Simply जब ये Roy or Vidyasagar वगैरह kind of people, when they were raising issues, they were not only concerned about women's issues. At the same time, they would talk about, say, caste system, untouchability, idol worship, and along with these also women's issues were taken up. Okay? At least during the initial period. Was this phase successful or not? Partially successful, we say. Why? Or limited, to a limited extent it was successful. Successful to the extent it was able to bear pressure on the colonial administration to initiate legislative, progressive legislation. So many laws were passed, say prohibiting sati, allowing widow remarriage, regulating the age of marriage. So to that extent, the efforts were successful. Then why do we say limited? Because the social base of these movements was limited. The social base of these movements was confined to upper caste, middle class, city-based women. Social base was confined to upper caste, middle class, city-based women. So they were not taking up the issues of, say, Adivasi women, rural women, lower caste women, and so on and so forth. Second phase, 1915 to 1950. Now, this phase in the socio-political life was dominated by the anti-colonial movement led by Gandhi. And Gandhian leadership had a very profound influence on the position of women in Indian society. How? Madhu Kishwar. She has written extensively on Gandhi's impact. Impact of Gandhi on women was twofold. According to Kishwar, Gandhi had a twofold impact. One was, under Gandhian leadership, there was a politicization of women. Politicization of women. Meaning what? And this was a very major development, friends, from a women's perspective. In the sense, conventionally, what is understood to be the appropriate social role of women? औरत की सही जगह कहां पे है? घर क्या? घर की चार दीवारी के अंदर, घर के वरांदे में नहीं, डोलती नजर आओ. ठीक है? Conventionally, women were considered as belonging to the or within the confines of the home. But Gandhi envisaged a public role for women. He encouraged women to participate in public life. So lakhs of women participated in public demonstrations, picketing liquor shops. Are you with me? Going on marches, like the Dandi March. So गांधी जी ने औरतों को पब्लिक लाइफ में एक रोल एनविसाज किया एंड मिलियंस ज्वाइंड और केम आउट ऑन द स्ट्रीट्स. ठीक? सो पॉलिटिसाइजेशन ऑफ विमेन, टेकिंग देम आउट ऑफ द कन्वेंशनली असाइंड domain of home, family life, and in the giving them a prominent role and place in public life. Secondly, under Gandhi there was also a feminization of politics. Feminization of politics. Politicization of women हुआ और feminization of politics हुआ. Meaning what? Conventionally, politics is understood as what? Politics is understood as a men's preserve, a male preserve. Politics is associated with what are regarded as masculine traits, such as dominance, control. Are you with me? Violence. But Gandhi associated what are regarded as feminine traits or virtues with politics. Non-violence, patience, perseverance. Even the tactics that were employed by Gandhian movements. Gandhi, for example, said, friends, that if somebody slaps you, what do? Yes, you offer the other cheek as well. कौन करता है ये? मारोगे? मारो और मारो. मतलब basically you speak truth to power, or you show a kind of a moral mirror to a more powerful adversary. समझ रहे हैं आप? You shame him into, realizing the abuse of power that he's engaged in. That was Gandhian method. Are you with me? भूख हड़ताल, खाना छोड़ दूंगा. कौन छोड़ता है in protest? So these were what are regarded as feminine traits of sacrifice, patience, non-violence. Gandhi made modern politics about that. May I? This period also witnessed the mushrooming or the establishment of a large number of women's organizations. Large number of women's organizations were established. Culminating in the establishment of All India Women's Conference as an apex body in 1927. मतलब locally, regionally या provinces में various bodies were established and culminating in the establishment of All India Women's Conference as a pan-India platform. ठीक? The main issues that were taken up in this phase were more prominent role for women in public life, such as more women in legislatures या holding public office, women in leadership positions. ठीक? Also suffrage या voting rights for women. And changes in discriminatory personal laws. Changes in discriminatory personal laws. How was this phase? What is your take? You've made it your go-to kind of answer. Huh? It was an astounding success. And why do I say that? Because it seemed that with the attainment of independence, the enactment of the constitution, and the subsequent decade, 1950s wali, it seemed as if all that the women's movement had been demanding was achieved. At one stroke, with the enactment of the constitution, women were granted equal rights as men, whether it is to hold public office, whatever. Yes or no? Equal voting rights. West में जो इतना slow था voting rights का attainment. 1950s में हिंदू पर्सनल लॉज को बहुत वो भी किया गया, sufficiently modify किया गया. ठीक है? इतना सक्सेस कि the movement went into a lull for 2 decades. महिलाएं 2 दशक तक सो गईं. मैं कहा आदमी लोग तुम लोग काम करो, हम सोती हैं. ये गलत बात है, बट विमेन्स मूवमेंट लिटरली वेंट into a suspended kind of a mode. कि जो चाहा था वो मिला, उससे ज्यादा मिला, इतनी इक्वालिटी मिल गई. But then in 1970s, sorry, 1950s and 60s में सो गई महिलाएं. 1970s में the third phase began. During 1970s and 80s was the third phase. The reason why it was suspended, because it seemed that everything that was on the agenda was attained. जब मिल ही गया था सब कुछ, फिर क्यों आप उठ खड़ी हुई 1970s में? फिर क्या दिक्कत? लालच आ गया, शी से महिलाओं को लालच आ गया. बिल्कुल, बट आपको कैसे पता? हाँ बिल्कुल. तो सरकार ने कमिटी कॉन्स्टिट्यूट करी. ठीक है. There was a 1974 report titled Towards Equality Report. Towards Equality Report. सरकारी कमेटी की थी 1974. Which highlighted कि basically जो equality है ना, much of it remains on paper, as she rightly pointed out. On the ground or in social life, the constitutional promise of equality, gender equality, has not been fulfilled. It is far from being fulfilled. There were, during this third phase, during the third phase, there were several local movements in different parts of the country in which the local women participated in large numbers. Local women matlab rural women, tribal women, fisher folk women, slum dwelling women. ठीक है. Tribal women, all of them. For example, the Chipko Andolan, which you may have heard of, one of the most popular of such movements. The Chipko Andolan. There was an anti-Arak movement in Andhra Pradesh. Arak is the locally produced liquor. There was an anti-price rise movement in Maharashtra. So in various localized movements, there was enthusiastic participation by local women. And there was another dimension of women's movement during this era. One was the participation by the local women. The other was the efforts by the Balkati Mahilaएं. Matlab in academia, in universities and colleges, educated women. They were making efforts. For example, women's departments were set up in many universities. Courses on women's studies were launched. A lot of literature was produced. Research papers, journals. There were publishing houses to specifically produce feminist literature that were established. ठीक है? Some of the major issues that were taken up during this time, in this phase, some of the major issues that were taken up were issues like dowry harassment and dowry deaths, safety of the girl child, the plight of prostitutes, custodial rape, मतलब rape in police custody. There was this Mathura rape case. Mathura was the name of a tribal girl. Okay, young tribal girl, she was raped by policemen in custody. And the accused were acquitted by a judge on the grounds. He said that basically Mathura was non-virgin. So the judge had said that Mathura was habituated to sex, so she could not have been raped. And that sparked a furor of sorts, or much outrage was there. ठीक है? उसके बाद there were changes in law कि basically consent was implied because she had not expressly said no. And then there were changes in this thing that unless expressly conveyed, consent is not presumed. जो मानते हैं ना लड़की की चुप्पी में भी उसकी हाँ है, वो नहीं है. ठीक है? तो कस्टोडियल रेप का इशू था. The issue of maintenance for Muslim women came up with the Shah Bano judgment. Issue of maintenance for Muslim women. So Shah Bano was this old Muslim lady who at a very advanced age, she was divorced by her husband, and beyond a certain period the husband refused to pay her maintenance. So the matter went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Shah Bano that the husband should pay. But the then Rajiv Gandhi government, it buckled under the pressure of Muslim orthodoxy and effectively reversed the judgment. ठीक है? To pander to the Muslim orthodoxy politically. तो ये मुस्लिम विमेन की मेंटेनेंस का इशू उठा. सती का इशू फिर से उठा. Why? There was a young woman in Rajasthan by the name of Roop Kanwar. ठीक है? She committed sati. Not only she committed sati, but that sati act was attended by scores of onlookers. Okay, and they kind of celebrated that. Not only they celebrated, after she committed sati, the news spread far and wide, and people from, people in fancy cars from Jaipur, yeah, even Delhi, they would visit that sthal, that place, and pay respects to Sati Mata. Again, Rajiv Gandhi was the then Prime Minister, so there was, and he was supposed to be this visionary who will take India into the 21st century. Young fellow and, educated and everything. But it was highlighted that still in this India, which is on the cusp of moving into the 21st century, such a primitive kind of a practice is still being carried out and being celebrated. So उस वजह से सती का issue gained traction. So these were some of the issues taken up during the third phase. अब आ जाओ current phase. Current phase मतलब 1990s and onwards. During this current phase, friends, what has been the dominant theme in the socio-political climate? Globalization. Basically, this has been the era of globalization. ठीक? इकोनॉमी वॉज ओपनड अप इन अर्ली 1990s, तब से हम ग्लोबलाइजेशन के एरा में जी रहे हैं. Some of the major issues that have been taken up during the present phase are the 50 million missing campaign, which we've spoken of. Basically highlighting what? कि adverse sex ratio, child sex ratio. समझ रहे हैं आप? And practices like female feticide and infanticide. Or the misuse of ultrasound technology for fetal sex detection, which is prohibited by law. है ना? Sexual harassment. So this period witnessed, for example, friends, the Vishakha guidelines being framed against sexual harassment. This period also witnessed the hashtag #MeToo movement, which also received sufficient traction in Indian society. Yes or no? And the POSH Act, है ना? Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. Issue of women's access to places of worship. Whether it is Sabrimala, whether it is Shani Shingnapur, whether it is Haji Ali Dargah. ठीक है? Challenging the menstruation taboo. Challenging the menstruation taboo. For example, in several colleges and universities, you have had female students, they started pasting sanitary pads on trees on the campus. Just to basically tell the authorities, college administration, that menstruation is normal. It is not something to be, literally kept under the wraps, the way it is in our society. Huh? Issue of issues of Muslim women have been taken up. Muslim women's issues, such as triple talaq हो गया, हिजाब का इशू हो गया, पॉलीगैमी, निकाह हलाला. Also, the issue of rape, or more broadly, safety of women in public places. है ना? Issue of safety of women in public places, or crimes against women like rape. And this has happened since the Nirbhaya gang rape, which was about a decade ago. Okay? Since then, this issue has got a lot of attention. Now, I will like to discuss this issue of rape at some length, and then Jairam ji ki. ठीक है? Several other issues also we'll take up, but tomorrow. But today we'll end up with a discussion on the issue of rape. Why do rapes take place, friends? It is a heinous crime. Is it for sexual pleasure? Or is it due to, unexpressed sexual desire that rapes take place? Well, simply do people commit rape because they don't get sex? Or sexual pleasure they can't have otherwise? Is that the case? Bitya. लैक ऑफ सेक्स एजुकेशन. हाँ बिल्कुल. ब्रदर, टू असर्ट, यस, मेल डोमिनेंस. It's not so much about sexual pleasure, friends, or engaging in sexual activity. That can be done through a monetary transaction, say in the case of prostitution, right? Yet, and prostitution is widely prevalent, easily accessible, and it's not only that, people who don't get sex commit rape. For example, married persons also commit rape. So rape is to a far greater extent not so much about sexual pleasure. Male is about asserting dominance and control. Male dominance and control over women. Rape is an act of assertion of male dominance over women. Subrata Bagchi says that in Indian society there is a separation between the private sphere and the public sphere. Separation between the private sphere and the public sphere. Women are considered as belonging to which sphere? So the private sphere is considered as the natural home or setting for women. Women simply are considered as belonging to the private sphere of home, family. Yes or no? And the public sphere is considered as belonging to whom? Men. Now, with modernization, what is happening? Women are increasingly venturing out of their homes. They are being increasingly seen in the public sphere. Why are women venturing out? For education, for jobs. लड़कियां अब घर से बढ़ती तादाद में घर से बाहर निकल रही हैं. I repeat, women are increasingly venturing out of their homes and into the public sphere for education or employment purposes. And this results in a backlash. There is a patriarchal backlash. So how does patriarchy try to restrict women's entry into the public sphere? Through various ways. One is, of course, through intimidation or threats of sexual harassment, eve teasing, rape. Yes or no? One is the fear of rape or sexual harassment. रात को आप 11 बजे आराम से निकलोगी क्या रोडों पे? नहीं. क्यों? देयर इज अ लर्किंग फियर ऑफ रेप और सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट और वायोलेशन. ठीक? सो दैट हेल्प्स कीप विमेन इनसाइड. और उसके अलावा इट कुड बी मेकिंग पब्लिक स्पेसेस अनवेलकमिंग फॉर विमेन. How are public spaces made unwelcoming for women? Through simple techniques like lack of public toilets for women. India mein you will find, say in a city like Delhi, lots of toilets for men. But very few open and functional toilets for women. And men urinate even without a toilet. Yes or no? Which women can't. Men do it on walls and poles and trees and everywhere. Which women can't. So I personally know many of my female relatives, friends, who say कि घर चलो क्योंकि टॉयलेट जाना है और बाहर नहीं जा सकते. ठीक है. या having fewer police women, having dim lighting, street lights नहीं जल रही होंगी, क्या करोगे? अंदर भागोगे. So all these tend to make public spaces somewhat unwelcoming for women. Whether it is lack of proper lighting or police women, toilets, basic supportive infrastructure. ठीक? Also appreciate, friends, that what encourages incidents of rape is a tendency of victim blaming. Oftentimes, friends, the victim is, it is made implicit that the victim is somehow responsible for the crime being committed against her. Yes or no? Accusations may be made regarding her dress, her demeanor. ज़्यादा हंस के बात करती हो लड़कियों से इसलिए हुआ, कपड़े ऐसे पहनती हो इसलिए हुआ, ड्रंक थी इसलिए हुआ. So somehow that women may have provoked the men to, or enticed men to commit rape. कि औरों के साथ तो नहीं होता, तुम्हारे साथ क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि तुमने कुछ किया है. Yes or no? Also victim shaming. There's a lot of shame associated with rape. But interestingly, who is ashamed? The victim. हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं? इज्जत लुट गई. रेप को इज्जत लुटना बोलते हैं. Who loses honor? The victim loses honor. So because of that, you would find that because of the culture of victim blaming and victim shaming, a lot of rape cases go unreported. Yes or no? Sorry? Because it is a patriarchal society and misogynistic mindsets, feminists would contend. That it is a culture overall which devalues women and prizes men. And from that follows various things. For example, starting from folklore or mythology to modern day mass media. Ramayana में आपके you have this incident of Sita crossing the Lakshman Rekha. Basically, what does it convey? That what does the Lakshman Rekha indicate? It indicates a certain limit imposed by honorable, trustworthy men. Yes or no? And if the women cross that or do not adhere to that norms laid down by men who control them, then there will be adverse consequences. सीता मैया के साथ हुआ है. उन्होंने लक्ष्मण रेखा उल्लंघी, जो लक्ष्मण जी ने कहा था, जो उनकी रक्षा कर रहे थे, तो उनको, सो द वर्ल्ड आउट देयर कंप्राइजेज ऑफ lavishious men, or who are out there to get you, and if you do not, so that is how men control women, impose restrictions on their mobility, on their sexuality, on their clothing style, etc. क्या आपका छोटा भाई आपको बता सकता है? नहीं बता सकता पूरे हक से कि दीदी आप नहीं जाओगी इतनी रात को, या ऐसे कपड़े मत पहनो. बता सकता है. ही इज परफॉर्मिंग द रोल ऑफ लक्ष्मण. ठीक है. चाहे मास मीडिया ले लो, कमला भसीन, शी सेज दैट मास मीडिया या पॉपुलर सिनेमा, या पॉपुलर सिनेमा से पहले बोलूं, इवन जो लैंग्वेज है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल हमारे यहां मैरिटल रेप इज नॉट क्रिमिनलाइज्ड. मैरिटल रेप इन आवर सोसाइटी इज नॉट criminalized. Why? Because the husband is considered as the owner of the wife. Wife is regarded as his property. तो कोई अपनी बीवी का रेप थोड़ी ना करता है. Are you with me? A person no less than Menka Gandhi, who is the Women and Child Development Minister and who has been fighting for animals' rights. She said कि इंडिया में the माहौल is not conducive for criminalizing marital rape. ठीक है. So Kamla Bhasin says that in Indian languages, the terms used for husband, such as pati, शौहर, स्वामी, प्राणनाथ, indicate control and ownership of women. ठीक. तो अगर मैन इज दी, अब मैं अपनी खुद की चीज थोड़ी ना चुराएगा कोई भी इंसान, है ना. सो दैट इज दी दिस थिंग रैशनल. भसीन ऑल्सो पॉइंट्स आउट कि क्या पॉपुलर सिनेमा encourages crimes against women. By glorifying eve teasing, stalking, and sexual harassment. Yes or no? In movies, what do we see? Women are objectified. Not only objectified, it is shown as a very playful kind of a thing. When the lead actor teases or stalks the lead woman. Yes or no? कौन छेड़ता है हीरोइन को? विलेन नहीं, हीरो छेड़ता है. हमारे टाइम में गाना था कि खंबे जैसी खड़ी है, लड़की है फुलझड़ी है, ऐसे करके था. ठीक है. पटाखे की लड़ी है, ऐसे करके आमिर खान का गाना था. एंड आमिर खान वॉज अ ह्यूजली पॉपुलर एक्टर, वेरी क्यूट. Girls used to swoon over him, etc. But what he is saying, and he's continuously harassing the lead female actor. I think it's Madhuri Dixit or somebody in that movie. So it becomes very normalized and acceptable कि कॉलेज में तो ये मस्ती होती है. Yes or no? एक और वो गाना था कि लाल दुपट्टे वाली तेरा नाम तो बता. गोविंदा इज द लीड एक्टर, गोविंदा एंड चंकी पांडे. वो तो शक्ल से ही वल्गर है, बट ह्यूजली पॉपुलर ऑल्सो, है ना. एंड अगेन इट्स शोइंग दैट इवेंचुअली दीज गाइज आर एबल टू विन देम ओवर The girls, there are two brothers who are stalking two girls and they are like, they are pulling her dupatta and छोटी मोटी ऐसी चीजें तो चलती रहती हैं. Are you with me? So such kind of thing normalizes crimes against women. अभी वो गाना आया है जो सामी, yes or no, पुष्पा का, such a raunchy and catchy number. Huh? Again, what it does, it kind of basically she's saying कि मैं आपके पैरों की धूल हूं, and she's like touching his feet and also very sexy. Yes or no, in that sense. And he's like the bindas masculine macho kind of a guy. एक हमारे वो मूवी होती थी अनिल कपूर की, in which he used to teach कि लड़कियां कैसे छेड़ो अनपटाओ. Numerous such. Point is, friends, there is a very thin line between Anil Kapoor and Shakti Kapoor. ठीक है? Such kind of behavior basically normalizes crimes against women, छेड़छाड़ कि इतना ये सब तो मस्खरी है या क्यूट है एंड चलता है, फन है, और these are acceptable. ठीक? Another, I get it. Another reason, okay, for the incidence of rapes is toxic masculinity. This concept has been developed by people like Michael Flood. What is toxic masculinity? Hello. What is toxic? Have we discussed this in paper 1 by any chance? Then tell me what it is, if you haven't. हो गया, बस 2 मिनट में रैप अप हो गया. बेसिकली जब बहुत ही टू मच मैस्कुलिनिटी हो जाती है, बेसिकली देर आर सर्टन स्टीरियोटिपिकल नोशंस ऑफ मैनहुड विच आर इम्पोज्ड ऑन मेन इन अ पेट्रियार्कल सोसाइटी. Men are expected to be macho, aggressive, violent, powerful, dominating, go-getters, providers. Yes or no? मतलब men are forced to inculcate such personality traits in a patriarchal society. Men are kind of compelled to inculcate, can you be soft-hearted and also a man? Clementine Ford argues that toxic masculinity is linked to misogynistic attitudes, sexual harassment and rape. Simply, friends, you are expected to, as part of this toxic masculinity, men are expected to, in a patriarchal society, are expected to objectify women, sexualize women. मास मीडिया ये प्रोजेक्ट करता है, पीयर प्रेशर ये इनकरेज करता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इन कॉलेजेस How are girls referred to by boys? क्या माल है? Yes or no? They refer to as माल, as item. ऐसे बोलते हैं ना दोस्त लोग लड़कियों के बारे में. Objectification है. माल या item means what? They are compared to a thing, commodified, as if they are not human or not full persons. हमारे यहां, हमारे कॉलेज में, when I was in college, there was a boy, he used to use phrases like कद्दू कटेगा तो सब में बटेगा, which meant what? That if a girl sleeps with one person, then she will sleep with all. ठीक है? मतलब treating women like a thing or an object. And if you, I personally used to feel very uncomfortable, should I say, with such kind of this thing. But then because of that, I was laughed at. Ki I'm not man enough. Are you with me? That is the expectation of toxic masculinity. That you must objectify, sexualize women. Otherwise, you are not man enough. ठीक? Last thing. अरे भैया, last thing. I thought you'll be happy. ठीक है, third last. तो सुन लो. Another last thing that I want to say, friends, that rape is also a political tool. It is a political tool. For example, friends, during communal riots, during caste conflicts, during wars, what do we often find accompanying these acts? Incidences of rapes. Yes or no? Urvashi Butalia, she has documented that during the communal riots accompanying partition of India, communal riots during the partition of India, women of all the communities were raped by men of the other communities. Simply Muslim women or Muslim men raped Hindu and Sikh women, while Hindu and Sikh men subjected Muslim women to rape. क्यों? अगर आपको टेरिटरी कॉन्कर करनी है, अगर आपको किसी कम्युनिटी को दबाना है, तो उसमें रेप का क्या रोल है? सिंपली यस, ऑनर, बिल्कुल. The honor of a community is intimately associated with preservation of the sexuality of its women. So if another social group, if an adversary is able to violate or sexually access the women of another, that is seen as an affront or seen as dishonorable for the community. समझ गए? बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.